She traveled to Africa to visit the man she fell in love with online, but just days later, he betrayed her, offering her as a human sacrifice to the gods for riches and power. It was a warm day in April. The sun was shining, but Jane's heart was beating so fast. She could feel it. She was very excited, and also a little bit scared. For the very first time in her life, Jane was going to Africa, not for a holiday, not for work, but to meet someone very special, Alex, the man she had fallen in love with online. 6 months ago, they met on a dating site. At first, it was just small chats, then long phone calls. Then they started laughing together, dreaming together, and talking about their future. They told each other secrets. They promised to be together. They imagined the day they would finally meet. And now, that day had come. Jane's plane landed early in the morning. She stepped out, looked around the airport, and sat down with her suitcase right beside her feet. She held it tightly, her hands a little shaky. Her eyes were wide, watching the crowd. Then, she saw him. A tall, handsome man was walking toward her. He had a big smile on his face, and in his hands he carried a bunch of fresh, beautiful flowers. Jane stood up quickly. Her heart jumped. She didn't even think. She just ran, straight into his arms. They hugged tightly, like they didn't want to ever let go. Then they kissed, slowly, sweetly, like they had waited forever for that one moment. They both smiled and looked into each other's eyes. Without wasting time, they got into a taxi. The car moved through the city, big buildings, noisy cars, people selling things on the road, children playing by the roadside. Jane looked around, smiling. Everything felt new and exciting. But as they drove further, the noise of the city began to disappear. The roads became quieter. The buildings became fewer. Tall green trees rose on both sides. The sun shone through the branches, and the wind blew softly. Jane looked outside the window, her eyes full of wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. But just then, the taxi slowed down and stopped. It was a lonely, quiet junction. No people, no houses, just trees and dry leaves on the ground. Jane looked around, confused, anxious. "Why are we stopping here?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. Alex smiled, as if everything was perfectly fine. Gently. "This is as far as cars can go," he said gently. "My village doesn't have motorable roads yet. We'll take a motorcycle from here." Jane nodded slowly. She didn't say anything, but inside her, a tiny seed of worry was starting to grow. They got off the taxi and waited. Soon, a motorcycle came. Jane climbed on behind Alex and held him tightly. The road was very rough. The bike jumped up and down as it moved over bumps and stones. Jane's hands clutched Alex's waist. She tried to laugh, but her heart was whispering, "This is not what I expected." Finally, the motorcycle stopped again. This time, in front of a big, wide river. Jane's eyes widened. The water flowed slowly. It looked calm, but it was big. Too big to walk across. Jane looked at Alex with surprise. "Why are we stopping here?" she asked again, this time more worried. Alex pointed to the other side of the river. "My village is just across," he said. "The bike can't cross the water, but don't worry, I will carry you." Jane blinked. "Carry me?" she asked. Alex smiled. "Yes, it's okay. I've done this many times." Jane nodded slowly. She tried to smile. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to feel safe. But something in her chest felt heavy. It didn't feel like fear, but it wasn't peace either. Just then, Alex called out to a young boy who was standing near the riverbank. The boy came closer and took Jane's luggage. Then Alex bent down, slowly. "Climb on," he said gently. Jane hesitated for one tiny second. Then she climbed onto his back. She wrapped her arms around his neck. held on tightly. The wind blew softly. The water in the river made quiet splashing sounds. Step by step, Alex walked into the river, and the cold water touched his legs. Jane closed her eyes tightly. She did not speak. She did not move. She just held on. And he kept walking. When Alex and Jane reached his house, Jane felt a little better. She looked around. It was quiet, peaceful. Alex's family came out to greet her. They had warm smiles. They hugged her, shook her hands, and welcomed her kindly. The house was small, not like the ones in Jane's country, but it felt cozy. The walls were made of clay, and the roof was covered with dry grass. Inside, it smelled like wood and fresh air. Jane sat in the living room and looked around, trying to take it all in. One by one, neighbors came. Old men, women, children, they walked in, curious and smiling. Some brought small gifts. Some just came to say hello. A few of them reached out and touched Jane's skin gently. "Her skin is soft," they whispered. To many of them, this was the first time they had ever seen a white person so close. They looked at her like she was magic. Jane smiled, but her heart was beating just a little bit faster. Then a woman came in. Her name was Felicia. She was a poor basket weaver. She looked at Jane quietly, not smiling too much, not saying much. Then, as she turned to leave, Felicia leaned closer to Jane's ear and whispered, "Trust no one in this village." Just those words. Then she walked away. Jane blinked. Her heart skipped. She looked at the door where Felicia had just left. Why would she say something like that? But before she could think too much, Alex came in with a warm meal. It smelled so good. Jane washed her hands, and they both ate together. The food tasted different, but she loved it. "This is really good," she said, chewing slowly. "Africa has really good food." Alex smiled. "There's more if you want," he said. After the meal, Jane felt sleepy. Her body was tired from the long journey. She walked into Alex's room. It was a simple room. There was a small wooden bed with a thin mattress. No fan, no TV, just a window with the curtain blowing softly in the breeze. Jane lay down on the bed and picked up her phone. She wanted to call her family. She wanted to tell them she had arrived safely. She wanted to hear their voices. But there was no signal. The bars on her phone were empty. She tried again and again, but nothing worked. She sat up quickly. "Alex," she called out. "There's no network. I can't make any calls." Alex came in, calm as ever. "Don't worry," he said. "Tomorrow I will take you to a spot where the network is good." Jane nodded slowly. Then she laid back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. But she couldn't stop thinking. Why did Felicia tell me not to trust anyone? What did she mean? Was she just being funny? Was she trying to scare her? She didn't know. But she told herself one thing. "I have a man who loves me. Alex has my back. I will be fine." The next morning, Jane woke up early. The air was fresh and cool. Birds chirped in the trees outside. Alex brought out a small broom made from dry sticks. He smiled. "Let me show you how to sweep the compound." Jane giggled. She took the broom and began sweeping the ground slowly, dragging the dust away, laughing as the wind blew it back into her face. It was hard work, but she liked it. After sweeping, Alex's mother called her into the outdoor kitchen. It was an open space with black pots, firewood, and thick smoke rising from a fire. Jane helped stir a pot. She helped wash some vegetables. She had never done anything like that before, but it felt like an adventure. "I like it here," she said happily. But deep inside, that small worry was still sitting quietly in her heart. Before Jane came to the village, something had happened. Something dark. The king of the village had died just weeks before, and in this village, when a king dies, they don't bury him alone. It is a tradition, a very old and scary one. The king must be buried with the heads of 7 other people. So, whenever a king dies, the villagers begin to search. They send people out to other places to look for the ones who will go with him. Before Jane arrived, they were still searching. They had not yet found all the 7. One afternoon, Jane and Alex were coming back from the farm. They had baskets of food, their clothes a little dusty. As they walked home, they saw someone sitting under a tree. It was Felicia. She was weaving a basket with her hands, twisting the dry leaves quickly, making it look easy. Jane stopped and sat beside her. She watched her fingers move. "Wow," Jane said. "That's so cool. Can I take a picture?" Felicia smiled a little and nodded. Jane took a photo. Then they sat and laughed and talked for a while. But when Jane stood up to leave, Felicia grabbed her hand gently and whispered again, "Do not trust anyone in this village." Jane froze. This was the second time. Her heart began to beat fast again. "Why?" she asked, looking into Felicia's eyes. But Felicia only shook her head. "I can't say more than what I just told you," she said softly. Then she turned her face away and went back to weaving her basket. Jane walked home, feeling something heavy growing in her chest, something she couldn't explain, something that didn't feel right. That night, Jane and Alex sat together on his old wooden bed. The light in the room was dim, the air was quiet. They held hands, whispered softly, and talked about their future. They laughed. They dreamed. They said sweet words to each other. "I love you," Jane said. "I love you more," Alex replied. Everything felt peaceful. But suddenly the door opened fast. A small boy ran inside. He was panting, his eyes wide. "Uncle Alex," he said quickly. "Some men are outside. They want to see you." Alex stood up at once and walked out. Jane stayed on the bed, waiting. Outside, the men were standing in the dark. They looked serious. Their faces showed no smile. They spoke in low, quiet voices, so no one else could hear. The oldest man among them looked at Alex and said, "The king's burial is in 7 days, but we do not have all the human heads yet." Then another man stepped forward and said something even more shocking. "That white woman who came to see you," he said, "she is a stranger. Offer her. Name your price." The other men nodded and added, "If you give her to us, you will become the royal advisor to the next king. You will get big lands, anywhere you want. You can even marry the most beautiful maiden in this village. All this and more if you just offer her." Alex froze. His chest felt tight. His head was spinning. He opened his mouth slowly. "No, my elders," he said, "I cannot do that. I love her. I love Jane. I cannot do that to her." But the men looked at him coldly. "Think about it," they said. "This offer will change your life forever." Alex walked away, angry. His feet moved fast. He slammed the door and lay down on the bed next to Jane. She was sleeping peacefully. Her breath was soft. Her face looked calm. Alex stared at her. His mind was full of noise. He turned left, then right. He could not sleep. He kept hearing voices in his head. The evil one whispered, "Do it. You will have power. You will be rich. Look at all the women in this village. You will forget her soon." Alex held his head in his hands. Then his heart grew cold. He made up his mind. "I will do it," he said in his heart. "I will offer her for the ritual." The next day, Alex met one of the elders on the farm. They stood under a tree. Alex told him everything. "I agree," he said. "You can take Jane." They began to plan how it would happen. But what Alex and the old man didn't know was this. Felicia was nearby. She was on her own farm, close to where they were talking. She had been working quietly, but when she heard voices, she ducked behind a tall palm tree. She listened. She heard everything. Her heart dropped. Her hands shook. As soon as the men walked away, Felicia ran home fast. She didn't waste time. She sent her little boy to call Jane. Jane was sitting under a mango tree with Alex, laughing and sharing stories. Then the boy came. "My mother said you should come," he said. "Is there a problem?" Alex asked. "I don't know," the boy replied. "You can go and see her," Alex told Jane. Jane stood up and followed the boy. When she got to Felicia's house, Felicia shut the door quickly behind her. Her face was pale. Her voice was low but serious. "You will not live to talk about your experience in Africa," she said. Jane's eyes widened. "You will never see your family again if you don't leave this village tonight." Jane's hands began to shake. "What are you talking about?" she asked. Felicia looked at her with pity. "They are planning to offer you as a sacrifice," she said. "The king's burial is in 4 days. If you don't escape tonight, they will take you to the shrine in 2 days. You will be tied there until the 4th day. Then you will be killed." Jane gasped. Her knees went weak. She held onto the wall to stand. "Alex," she whispered. "You mean Alex is part of this?"
"Yes," Felicia said.
"He offered you. He wants the riches and power they promised him." Jane covered her mouth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "No. No. Not Alex. He told me he loved me." "I told you not to trust anyone," Felicia said sadly. Jane cried harder. "But how do I leave? I don't know this place. I don't know where to go." "I will help you," Felicia said firmly. She handed Jane a small packet. "Put this powder in anything he eats or drinks before going to bed tonight," she said. "It will make him sleep deeply and not wake up. Once he sleeps, open the door quietly. Walk down to the road after the vulcanizer's shop. There's a narrow path that leads into the forest. Do not stop. Do not turn left or right. Just run straight." Felicia leaned closer. "I will be in the forest waiting for you." Jane wiped her tears. Her lips were shaking. "Don't carry anything heavy," Felicia added. "Just your phone, nothing else." Jane nodded. She hugged Felicia tightly. Thank you so much." Then she went back to the house. Dinner was ready. She sat across from Alex. Her hands were cold. Her heart was beating very fast. "Can you get me a cup of water?" she asked. Alex stood up and walked into the kitchen. Quickly, Jane took the powder and sprinkled it into the food. She looked around. No one saw her. Alex came back with the water. She drank it slowly and smiled weakly. "I feel full," she said. "I can't eat any more." Alex ate the rest of the food. Minutes passed. His eyes began to blink slowly. Then he fell asleep. And soon he was snoring loudly. His family was also deep asleep. Jane stood up carefully. Her hands shook as she opened the door. She looked left. She looked right. No one was awake. She stepped outside and walked fast, her heart pounding. She found the road after the vulcanizer's shop and turned into the narrow path. As soon as she entered the forest, she began to run. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. The trees were tall. The night was dark. The wind whispered through the leaves. She was scared, but she kept running. Then she saw something. A hut. There was light inside. She slowed down. Should she stop there? Maybe they could help. But then she remembered Felicia's words, "Do not trust anyone." So she ran past the hut, but the noise of her footsteps woke the men inside. 3 hunters stood up. They looked out and saw her running. They picked up their weapons and chased her. Jane looked back and screamed. Her heart almost stopped. "Somebody help me," she cried. She was tired. She was weak, but she didn't stop. She ran as fast as her legs could carry her. But the hunters were faster. They caught up with her. They grabbed her arms. She kicked. She screamed. "Please don't kill me," she cried. But the hunters didn't listen. They were from the village. They already knew she was the one chosen for the king's burial. They dragged her deep into the forest, to a small, scary place with red cloths and bones on the ground. The chief priest's shrine. "She was trying to escape," one of the hunters said. The chief priest nodded. "Hold her tight." They tied her hands. They tied her legs. They even tied her mouth so she couldn't scream. Then they left her there, waiting, in the dark. Back in the forest, Felicia was still waiting. She stood under a tree, looking out. She began to worry. Where is Jane? What happened? She paced back and forth. Then she decided to return to the village quietly. Maybe something had gone wrong. As she walked through the forest path, she suddenly heard voices. She stopped. She hid behind a bush. She saw the hunters walking by. She ducked quickly. She held her breath. Then she listened. They were laughing, talking about what they had done. "She's tied up in the shrine now," one of them said. Felicia's heart dropped. As the hunters picked up their weapons and resumed hunting in the forest, their voices and footsteps faded into the trees, and just then, Felicia made her move. She got down on her hands and knees and crawled through the grass, moving slowly toward the part of the forest where the shrine was hidden. The night was dark. The wind was cold. Leaves rustled under her feet. Felicia's heart was beating very fast. She knew that if she got caught, they would kill her too, but she kept going. When she reached the shrine, she didn't run in. She stopped and ducked behind a big tree. She peeked quietly through the leaves, her eyes moving fast. She was watching, listening. She had to be sure the coast was clear. Then she saw something. The chief priest and his messenger were picking special leaves somewhere in the forest, not too far from the shrine. They were talking to each other. They were not paying attention. This was her only chance. Felicia didn't waste a second. She ran fast and quiet into the shrine. Jane was lying there, tied up. Her eyes widened in shock when she saw Felicia. Felicia didn't speak. She quickly bent down and untied the ropes. Jane's hands and legs were sore, but she stood up. They looked at each other, breathing hard. Then they ran. They ran through the thick trees. They ran through the darkness. They didn't look back. Their feet hit the ground hard as they raced through the forest. Finally, they reached the river. The same wide river Jane had crossed when she first arrived. But now she had no time to think. Felicia turned around. "Climb on my back," she whispered. Jane did. Felicia stepped into the cold water. Her legs shook, but she kept moving. Step by step, she crossed the river with Jane on her back. When they got to the other side, they were both wet and tired. Felicia put Jane down. She looked into her eyes and said, "From here to the next village is just 15 minutes. Run straight. You will see a Catholic church. Don't stop. Don't turn. Just run to the church. It is safe there." Jane hugged Felicia tightly. They didn't say much, but in their hearts 1,000 words passed between them. Then Jane turned and ran. Felicia stood by the river watching her go. She didn't move until Jane was out of her sight. Jane ran through the bushes and small farms. Her legs were tired. Her chest was tight, but she didn't stop. She ran until she saw a white building with a cross, the Catholic Church. She ran into the compound, crying. The people inside took her in right away. They gave her warm food, dry clothes, and a place to rest. She was safe. She stayed at the church for a few days. Then the Reverend Father took her to the city, and from there, Jane took a flight back to her country. Far, far away from the village. Away from the danger. She was safe now. But back in the village, things had changed. When the villagers found out Jane had escaped, they were angry. They believed someone helped her run away. They believed it was Alex's fault. And because the gods still needed a head for the king's burial, they turned on Alex. He was dragged to the shrine. He begged. He cried. But it was too late. He was offered as a sacrifice in place of Jane. And it was over. Jane never forgot what happened. She never forgot the pain, the fear, the running, the night in the forest. But most of all, she never forgot Felicia, the poor basket weaver who risked her life to save her. Jane was forever grateful. Because without Felicia, she would never have made it out alive.